Welcome to Tattoo Shop Talk. This is the middle of Carlos and this is his face, and today we will talk crap. We will talk about
cocky experience of cockiness.
we'll talk about cockiness in tattooing and traditions, and obviously it's nice to respect them, but sometimes you also think like them traditions. It's not because of traditions, it's because they...
My dad wasn't a fucking tattooer, that's what's up.
Yeah, so it's because of the way that it's put out there.
When I started tattooing, I heard these all stories about how things goes, how things don't go. Some tattooer says you have to make your own needles, some tattooers have to do this and that, and you're like, fuck, how can I do all this, you know? And I realized like some people don't know stuff you talk about because they come from completely different area and they maybe don't have the same history as you do, or he was learning tattooing in different environment, so it's like that.
So my question is, what did you know when you started to get into that? Before, when you were in a tattooing and you're interacting with tattooists, like what was your options of know what's around, the ways of learning, the culture, all that, like what was tattooing for you before you actually started to tattoo?
Yeah, I mean, not much. Like I didn't know anything. All I knew is that okay, there is some tattooers they doing custom work. There's some tattooers doing whatever reference he has or whatever reference the customer brings in, and that's about it. I didn't have any clue that there should be some kind of like a rule behind all that tattooing, like oh you have to respect the traditions, or you have to like do only tattoos with thick lines because that's gonna work, or you have to work with only coil machines because that's like loyal. I heard that shit only after some like few years of tattooing. For a new tattooer, for me it was of course like I wanted to be respected in tattoo community, so I took these things serious. I got lucky with the shop where I was working because a lot of tattooers were really good guys and they explained me things how they work, so I just could pick what is good for me, what is not. But from beginning I was one of them, like talking about this is shit tattooing and this is good tattooing. Like if you don't make outlines, tattoo is crap. But now after tattooing so many years, I just realized like every tattooer comes from completely different environment and we are not living in 50s anymore, and it's a different story now. As long as you push yourself and try to make a good work, the rest, you know. But that's what I know, what I see, you know.
Yeah, in my experience, it's like I got my first tattoo in a shop. It was sort of friendly place, so there was a minimum charge, but I got it below because I was kind of regular there and piercing department, so they knew me. So I got first tattoo, but then as a standard seemed, oh, there's the guy who makes them at home, and it's kind of like, you know, everyone gets them, and I was like, oh, okay, whatever, and like. In that time, the price of tattoo meant like 2 weekends out kind of thing, so it seemed a lot of money, even if it's not a lot by today's standards. When I got to that home tattooist, like everyone's like, yeah, he's legit, he have the machines, he have this, that, and I was like, oh yeah. He actually had a machine. Later on, he upgraded to 2, and he's like, this is so fast, you don't have to change things from liner to shader and all that. And then he said that he started with a homemade machine and you can make it from like a cassette player kind of thing. It was the general word out there. Like when you talk to some dudes like, yeah, they make them from cassette players, like it seemed like sort of too fancy when you buy one. And thing like apprenticeship, it wasn't a thing. It was more like there was people who were tattooing and you communicate with them, and like it wasn't a word.
The story you hear is what you get. You didn't have much internet stories as well.
There was no internet. Like there was internet, but it was like kind of.
But that's like recently. That's not like fucking in 50s. Still, like in our country, it was
that's
like that.
Fucking, I was 17, so that's like.
Yeah.
18 years ago, that was a thing.
In our country. Probably in different countries, different stories, but again, that's why we talk about this. Everyone comes from different environment and you cannot ask everyone to respect the same shit, you know?
Yeah, plus that's the main culture seems like American traditional orientated. So it was like, yeah, apprenticeship, this, that. I was like, it wasn't an option. And I didn't even know that it's an option. Like even if I would be super rich, if I would go to America, I would get into that stuff. So it was just, we were absorbing all the information, and then the early internet came, and there was all the body modification, tattooing, and all that stuff. And that was where I found what apprenticeship. I was like, oh, it's a thing.
Now more you learn, more you tattoo, more you hear, and you can pick what is the best for you. I don't think you have to always go to the basement and make needles just to respect the tradition. I think you can respect the tradition in all kinds of ways. For me, I still think respecting tradition is like a nice thing to think about, because like, okay, our fucking ancestors started this, and you make living out of it, and you live the dream by doing beautiful pieces, whatever.
What are those traditions that you mostly hear of? Like when somebody's like, oh, you can't learn tattooing without blah, blah, blah. So what's the things you hear mostly? Well, what is the most talked stuff that people don't deserve these days?
One of the things I heard that for me was weird was the stories about if the tattooer makes tattoos on one customer, the customer cannot go to another tattooer because it's not loyal. If you start with one, you finish with one. Otherwise, other guys get jealous or angry at you, and you have to keep this community alive. That's what I heard in the area where I started working. I'm not saying everywhere is the same, but for me that was one of the things. Like, you tattoo your friends, he's gonna tattoo his friends, don't put your nose in his business, almost like that. And if the guy randomly comes to you, you still have to say, no, I can't tattoo you, even if you don't know who he is.
That's a very closed community kind of thing, and it sounds cool. I was working in
but I think that's the way.
Yeah, but I started to work in like very commercially orientated shops, and it was more like the people were angry because the guy, like, you know, worked in one shop, he left, and then that shop doesn't tell where the guy go because they want to keep the customer. And it was the issue that like, oh fuck, they fucking up my work and they don't want to tell me where I am, and the customer is not reaching out and all that. And that's before Instagram kind of thing.
Yeah. And then also there's this battle, old school against realism, because old school tattooers have different mentality, realism. And then when I learn around old school tattooers, from time to time I hear the stories about like, this guy's not like cool tattooer because he's doing this shit without outlines, and I'm like, okay, from beginning I thought it's true, but then you meet some realistic guys and they're fucking nice. Doesn't matter what style they do, as long as it's really good and they pushing the boundaries, they really try to get better.
And also within the style, there's this kind of realistic and that kind of realistic, and they will also talk shit about each other.
Yeah, as well. But also old school against old school, you know?
Yeah, but there are also some dudes that are chill and they just enjoy tattooing and they just not getting into all that drama. Also, thing that you hear a lot is like, oh, how can you call yourself tattooist if you don't know how to solder needles or build a coil machine or make coils? That's such a in-depth thing that for me, it's like when I was starting to get tattoos, people were kind of making their own needles, but they were switching to pre-made, and they're like, oh, this is so much more comfortable.
Yeah.
Now I think it's like unless you're doing some super specific stuff, it's more like a hobby. Like, you know, people have horse riding, you know? Like, you can get with a car there and there, but you enjoy having a horse and having that experience. So if you know how to make needles and you have time for that, it's amazing. And I also want to know that. And also I want to know how to like build and tune machines, but like I don't think I have time to learn it. I want to learn it. Hopefully I will. But in just this time of rotaries and pre-made machines and kits of springs and all that, it's still, you have to know some stuff, but it's like you can easily learn tattooing from old school to new school to whatever realistic without knowing that stuff, because there's just other stuff out there, you know.
And I just wanted to say good luck with traveling with a horse.
I imagine how people felt when a copy machine showed up in shops. Oh, it's not hand drawn. And now they're like, oh, computers. And now they're like, iPad.
There's still like, there's some tattooers who go back to these old traditions just to feel the vibe.
Yeah, but
that's why I say like, that's why you said about making your own needles. I would say I would like to try to make my own needles. I'm not sure if I want to learn. I don't think it's gonna give me anything. But I would like to be in the process for one day just to see it. It's like going to a museum. But to make my own needles, breathe that shit in your nose, and not my thing. Sorry, man.
I would like to know just from the technical aspect. So that's the thing about building tattoo machines and wrapping coils and all that stuff. Now there's all these rotary machines, and there's even that like, oh, that's the new shit, and you tattooing with dildos and all that. But there's also like million types of them. Suddenly, everyone's like, oh, but there's this Dan Cuban stuff, which is rotary, but it's not really rotary, and everyone is fine with that.
But when it comes to rotary, it's like a big deal.
Yeah,
Not for
but it
everyone.
also comes to that learning curve, like, you know.
New stuff comes into the
Yeah,
town.
yeah.
New guy in the town. Fuck that guy. Dude, like I heard shit stories about rotary machines for 5 years from all kind of people. Good, bad, whatever. And then when I tried the rotary after 5 years of hearing and absorbing and thinking fuck rotary, I tried first time to shade. Like it wasn't like whatever rotary, I bought some specific one, but it's still a rotary, and I worked with it. I was like, why everyone's talking shit? They scared of people making good shadings?
And you also tried the one I got on the guy where you were doing the
Like
black and gray stuff.
Dildo style.
Dragonfly. But like,
Dragonfly.
whatever, it's a rotary, and I'm like, oh, it's light, and it's so easy, and this is good, and you know, and people admit that it's good, but they don't want to. They don't want to be there, kind of thing.
I think it's like being scared of changing your t-shirt.
Kind
It's
of.
like you're
was
stuck
w-
with one thing.
I was wearing black all my life. Why
Yeah.
would I wear pink now?
Yeah. In the end, I think it's just like, I don't know, like you're scared of stepping into the new environment. But it always helps.
Or it's holding back to your good old days.
Yeah, like
Stick
someone said that rotary is shit, and you're like, yep. The same with this band sucks because someone said it, and you're like, all your life saying Nickelback is that shit.
I can imagine, because those rotaries been around since like some time, so there's some people with like 5 years of experience in like specific maybe style, like some black and gray, realistic and all that area, and they've been teach in a shop where everyone works with rotaries, and they've been doing their stuff with rotaries, and they good, customers are happy, and they win prizes on conventions, which is also a different subject. Everything is happening for them, and then they go in some forum and they're like, you have to know how to build a coil or a machine, and they're like looking at their cartridge and their machine, they're like, what? They probably have no idea, and they are awesome tattooists, they do awesome stuff, and then somebody's like, you didn't go through hell, you know? Maybe they went through a different type of hell, or maybe they didn't, but they're still good tattooists, you know? And it's just to diss them, like, you know...
You don't have to know how to build a car to drive the car. Like, some old-timer dudes had to build the machines just to tattoo. Like, this is different day. Like, you buy a machine and then you tattoo. Like, I'm sorry, old guys, but like, dude, like, why would you want to spend time on some bullshit if you can cut that and do something more serious?
Exactly. And there's also that thing out there that is like, this is made by tattooists for tattooists, therefore it's like more true. It's nice, and I respect that.
Yeah.
But sometimes, you know, if we're talking about tattoo machines, it's like, sometimes I need a machine now, you know, and I can go on the website and I see this machine is there, I'll buy it. And maybe it's also made by a tattooist, it's just available, so instead of reaching out to that custom machine builder somewhere, explaining what I want, being sure that he's understanding that my approach on that is the same, waiting for some time for him to build the machine, to ship it out, for me to receive it. If we're talking different continents, it's the taxes and all that, and you know, all that hustle, and you might get it at the end and it's like, oh, it's not what I expected. So in that sense, I like it, and I always like to support small businesses and all that stuff, but sometimes you need the stuff just what's available, or maybe it's standardized, and you know, like if you buy Workhorse, or if you buy Cheyenne, or if you buy something, it's made and it's this.
Yeah, like there's some classics you stick with it and it works, especially for beginners. There's some things like, if you go to tattoo shop as a beginner and ask for advice, there is a lot of tattooers telling what to do, and they always match the ideas. Like Warhorse, for example, for beginning, price is good. But I was thinking, like, as much coil machines I bought in my life, I always had like such a struggle. Of course, I had to know, I knew, like I have to know how to set up the machine. But like, first of all, I didn't have anybody around me who could tell me like what is what, like, and from figuring out myself, it was just waste of time. It's like learning Japanese without the fucking teacher. I'm not that kind of dude, just that's it. I like to draw.
We are also from similar environments, and also the people we have around, it's like, oh, I have a trouble with my machine, can you tune it? And they're like, oh, let me have a look, and they do something and you're like, oh, it's better. What did you do? And they're like, I don't know, I just did something I can't explain.
Yeah, I can't explain.
So you're like, oh, okay, you know, and then it's, again, it stops working, and then you're like, oh, I saved enough money, you buy a new machine, you work with that one, then something goes wrong with that. You take the old one,
stick with the coils.
Suddenly it's just good. It was bad, but you take it out of a shelf after 2 months and it's like, oh, it's running.
Suddenly it's running, but when the next customer comes, again it's not running. And then you're like, fuck, I have to clean something. It just makes so much sense for me to buy something that works every time. Like someone did work before I got the machine. It's like, wow, that's all I need. I need something that I can work clear. It's like pencils. I'm not making pencils to draw.
Yeah, and as we were talking, like if we talking back to that, you have to learn stuff and stick to traditions. So we are from post-Soviet country, which is Latvia. Tattoo traditions there come from prison. So or military. And everyone who talks about like older generations, like that traditional tattooing is like that dark stuff where it's you have to make a machine from a music player, ink from the sole of a boot, or drawing inks and stuff like that. So if we would talk in our country like, oh, I have to go back to traditions, then we have to go in prison, because also another tradition is that all tattoos should have prison meaning. And if you meet a prison guy, he's like, a moon, what does it mean? You know, all that shit.
Yeah, and,
so that's our tradition.
And then from prison, you have to figure out where that came from, where the prison tattoos came from. It's like you can go back. So basically, these old-timer tattooers who've been tattooing for 30 years are nobody because they don't tattoo with sticks and homemade muddy ink. That's it. Like
the thing.
Like follow the time. Like don't be worried about being loyal to some traditions. I think you should respect traditions. Respect traditions. The opportunity tattooers have, they're good. Like it's crazy. It's like a job where you have so much freedom, and I mean, it would be silly not to respect tattoo industry and traditions. And there is completely different story from what it was 10, 20, 30, 40 years ago. But I mean, there's still also good shit going on. I think tattoo community is getting richer with also really great artists who respect traditions, and when you meet with these people you realize like, fuck, everything's great. And these people who whine usually are those who cannot stick with the evolution, I think.
Or maybe they have nothing to do or something, but on all those forums you see these fronts, you know, and you should respect traditions. You can't go in there like, I decided learn tattooing, teach me. Obviously, like, fuck you, what's the point? There's also internet and those forums, and you can get access to them. So if you're learning, if you're like noob, if you're not tattooing, if you're like a scratcher or whatever, you lied yourself into that. If you're like respectful, you're passively learning things, asking reasonable questions, it's fine. If you go with a dick question, you'll get a dick answer, and obviously the hate spreads and people will jump on you.
Or you fake it. Like, have you ever tried coil machine? Yeah, I tried it once.
Yeah,
I know how to work it.
It's awesome for lines.
Yeah.
You know, all that stuff. But like, yeah, traditions are cool, but it's just sometimes it's a bit too much. You're like, this is 21st century, 2019. Like, you know, if you listen about that history, tattooing wasn't that cool. Designs were made simple to knock out quickly on sailors who's drunk to get them out of the shop. And you know, when you come in with like, I want my art and all that, this is different story. This is different times. This is different approach. Plus now there's all those young people with mad art education going into tattooing. I've been in shops with sort of old timers. They closed the shop, they age, and their level of skill was way behind of what's happening now. Because there's people who just start and they're like awesome. And the people who work there, they have their own quirks and features, but they can't pull off what people can do it now.
Like a new generation gets all these shortcuts. Old guys, they were figuring out the long way because there was no one telling them what to do. So it took lifetime to figure out. And of course, when you get old, when you're shaky, you cannot make clean work as good as when you're younger.
Unless you're a legend and it's experience to get that.
Yeah, but still, like you can tell, like this guy's been tattooing for too long. Like he's not as clean as. The only beauty of that tattoo from the old school guys that the story with him and that
the name,
he
like,
did.
you know,
Yeah,
like I got tattooed by a legend.
and sometimes it's fine. Like for me, I not always I need the best clean work. I just all I care is the history and story and the guy's signature. You know. But
I'm also an experienced guy, you know, it don't have to be good, it has to be good experience for me.
Yeah.